After the dismal performance that was week 5 for me in terms of picking NFL games, I did much better last week. Got 9 right out of the 14. So that's a definite improvement. But we have more games this week, of course, and the Green Bay Packers are back. So we have the dreaded choice of whether to pick them to win or not. Yes, even against the Denver Broncos in Mile High is a tricky proposition, but we'll get into that. If you like the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, comment, all that. But let's get into the first game with Jacksonville versus New Orleans. And who knows what's going to happen this week? Who knows if Trevor Lawrence is going to play, which would be a big hindrance for the Jags. And the Saints, who have not looked good these past couple of weeks. Their offense has been sputtering. Sure, they had a lot of yards last week, but they could not score. Even against Houston's young, yes, up and coming defense, they could not score. And it, for the life of me, befuddled me why they couldn't. I mean, Chris Olave has not done anything really for 3 weeks. I mean, sure, he did a little better last week, but just hasn't been there really. It's kind of perplexing. Sure, Kamara's still getting his carries, which is good. The Saints are still getting a good amount of sacks. They are holding teams to a low amount of points, but still, it's just like, when is it going to end? When are they actually going to break through and beat up a team? Maybe it's this week. Who knows? The Jags are kind of tricky to pick in this one as well, just because you never know what you're going to get. Their offense has been much better the past couple of weeks, so maybe it'll be the same like it has, but who knows? I think it all depends on if Trevor Lawrence plays or not. But I think the Saints win 27-21. Next we have the Raiders and the Bears. And here's another interesting proposition. Is Fields going to play? Who knows? If it's not Fields, I would imagine it would be Tyson Bagent, but who knows? And then we have the Raiders. Who knows if Jimmy G is going to play or not? Devontae has not had great games the past couple weeks. Sure, he's been playing hurt, and last week he just got lit up or against the Patriots. Josh Jacobs still hasn't really done anything this year of note, to be honest. When is he going to break through? Maybe it's this week against the Bears' crappy defense, but who knows? I think the Raiders would ultimately win this one, but I think it all depends on if just Fields plays, which who knows if he actually is. It sounds like he's pretty hurt, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. I think there's a better chance that Jimmy Garoppolo plays since he got somewhat good news about his back not being too serious, but he did have to wait the game, so it's a matter of if he'll be able to go. Should be an interesting game though against one very mediocre team and one bad team, but we'll see what happens. I think the Raiders win this one 24-17, something like that. Sounds about right. Next we have Cleveland and Indianapolis. And in this one, Indy has been a very mysterious team the past couple of weeks. Minshew didn't have the greatest game last week, had 3 interceptions. Again, now they're going up against a really good defense, so, and for fantasy owners of Jonathan Taylor, probably not going to be this week where he breaks out either, and which makes you think, is he going to break out at all this year? Who knows? We all know Anthony Richardson is probably done for the year, and the Browns should have more than enough. They came off that win against the 49ers last week, which, yes, you could probably say was kind of helped and aided by the referees, but should be an interesting game nonetheless. I think Cleveland wins handily, to be honest. It's just Minshew has his moments, but then you remember why he's a backup quarterback, and he reminds you pretty quickly. I think the Browns win 35. Well, maybe that's a little ambitious. 28-17. Next we have Buffalo and New England. Here another game. Josh Allen has a hurt shoulder, but I'm sure he'll probably play against the Patriots, who are just awful. They're just a bad team. Their offense is so bad. Who knows what happened to Ramondre Stevenson? whatever skill he had last year seems to have completely vanished. The Bills escaped by the skin of their teeth last week against the Giants in a game that the Giants should have won, because I think you can really say the refs kind of screwed the Giants in that one, and the Bills should have had that game won by halftime. Why they struggled so mightily, I will never know. But a win is a win. They're going up against New England. At least this time it's in October, so there shouldn't be any nasty winter storms like there has been the past couple of years with the Bills and the Patriots. I think the Bills should have more than enough to win this game, but it could be a defensive battle. I think Josh Allen will play better this week, but who knows? Who knows what we're going to get from him on a weekly basis. Still one of the best quarterbacks in the league, but sometimes you see a really huge game, and then sometimes you see a very average game where you think, like, what happened? What happened? Why didn't he do better? But I think the Bills should win this week. But then again, like all other picks this year, it's impossible to pick in this league. It really is. So many games that look like they're going their way, then change on a dime at the last second. But Bills should win 28 to 14. And 14 might be stretching it again for the New England offense, to be honest. Next, we have Washington and the Giants. Washington came off a pretty impressive win against the Falcons last week. The Giants, again, like I said before, were kind of screwed out of a potential win against the Bills. Who knows if Daniel Jones will going to play? I bet he sits out another week, but who knows? I think there might be a chance that he plays. Sam Howell's been pretty underrated this year. He's been pretty good, other than those couple games against the Bills, and he didn't look good in a couple other games. He's been pretty solid. When they haven't played really good teams, he's been pretty darn good. Now, whether that shows he can be a really great, successful quarterback in the NFL going forward remains to be seen, but from what I've seen of him, he definitely has the chops to be a above average quarterback in the league. The Giants, Saquon's back, so that's a big help, although he didn't do too well last week. I mean, he's just solid runner last week. It's a Washington and Giants game, so it should be fun to watch and should be interesting. Should be close most of the game, like they always are. I think Washington wins, though, 24 to 21. Should be a close game. Can't wait to see it, what happens. And next we are on to Atlanta and Tampa Bay. In this game, Atlanta didn't look great last week. Tampa Bay didn't look great last week. Baker just was awful against the Lions. Though the Lions have had a propensity to make that happen this year. They really have. And Atlanta, Desmond Ridder is just not the answer. He shows brief flashes, but then you remember, like, oh my God, how could we ever think this guy's going to be starting quarterback? Because his throws and accuracy are awful. The interception last week was just inexcusable. And Monday morning quarterback and all, but yeah, he's still not the answer for Atlanta. Atlanta's going to have to look next year. They have lots of great pieces around him, and he just does not know how to succeed. Sure, it's still the NFC South, so both of these teams still theoretically have a chance to win the division. It'll be a big old bowl of crap by the end. I'm sure everybody in the NFC South will be maybe a little above or near 500. So again, another crappy NFC South, but I think Tampa Bay bounces back. Their offense should be a little better this week. They're not going to have the Lions or Aiden Hutchinson rushing down the throat every second of the game, but should be close. Tampa Bay wins 24 to 20. Next, we have Detroit and Baltimore, probably one of the more marquee matchups of the week. Detroit has looked great. Baltimore has looked pretty good as well, or pretty good offensively. Zay Flowers has been a great pick for the Baltimore Ravens. Jameson Williams came back, or had a touchdown for the Lions last week. Amon-Ra St. Brown continues to dominate. Even though David Montgomery went out last week, we had Craig Reynolds with one of the coolest blocks we've seen in a while, and he was pretty solid last week. Jared Goff has been nothing but consistent all year long. Baltimore, their defense has been pretty good despite all the injuries that they've had. Lamar Jackson has been less than spectacular for most of the year, but he gets it done, and they have a decent average running game. Mark Andrews, of course, is there. Should be a really close matchup, I think. I think Detroit wins this one. I was originally going to play Baltimore, but just the way Detroit has been going these past couple weeks, it's hard to really pick against them, even in one of their tougher matchups this year. I think Detroit wins 27-24. Should be a very close game. Maybe come down to a field goal at the end, but it's going to be one of the more competitive games of the weekend. Next we have Pittsburgh and the Rams. Pittsburgh coming off a bye, and they've been pretty solid. George Pickens had a great game against Baltimore before they went on the bye, so hopefully he can continue that. Najee Harris is just terrible running back. He's just terrible. Their defense is pretty consistent though. The Rams looked pretty decent against the Rams or against the Cardinals last week. Kyren Williams might miss the game. Sadly, Puka Nacua, as good as he has been this year, now that Cooper Kupp is back in there, he's just not getting targets. Or he maybe is getting targets, just not getting the amount of receptions he was, which is really unfortunate for somebody like me. But I knew that was going to happen, and Puka Nacua was a great story for a while. Hopefully he can regain that again this week. It would be nice. But it should be a really well competitive game. I think, honestly, I don't know who to pick. I think this game is a real toss-up. Both teams have really great strengths and weaknesses as well. In terms of a 50-50 basis, I think I'll take the Steelers. I think they just have a better defense and a more consistent offense, but it's probably going to go down to the wire. 24-21. Next we have Arizona and Seattle. Arizona has had their moments this year, but still not great. Seattle should have won last week, but there are a couple boneheaded decisions at the end. Pete Carroll not going for the field goal towards the end of the game and going for it and missing. And Jason Myers had a missed field goal, so that sucked. But it's amazing how well Seattle opened. Like, they were just consistently running. They just kind of stalled after that. Then we had a couple more field goals after that first touchdown. It's just like, what happened? Yes, the Bengals defense was really good last week, but hopefully they'll get more consistent. Kenny Walker should have a great game this week against Arizona. I don't like Arizona's odds. It's in Seattle. I think Seattle wins pretty handily, but Arizona has been known to surprise from time to time. But I think Seattle wins 35-17. Next we have the Chargers and the Chiefs. The Chiefs didn't look the greatest last week. It was a Thursday night game in Denver, but Denver put a little bit of effort in there, and the conditions weren't that great. But Kelsey had a great game and probably will have another great game this week. The Chargers lost last week against Cowboys. Eckler looked pretty good for the most part. Justin Herbert just hasn't been very great. He's been pretty average all year. Hopefully he can break through this week. The Chargers really need a win to stay in the competition for the division, even though we all probably know that the Chiefs have already won it basically, and as long as they don't have any more really bad injuries, that they should win with the division going away. But of all the matchups in the AFC West, it's usually the most competitive. Whether you believe that or not, I guess it's up to you, but it always seems this game comes down to a Chargers mistake. Our Chargers always seem to charger every time they play the Chiefs, but think the Chiefs win. Chiefs should have more than enough. 27-21. Next, we have Miami and Philly, one of the best games of the week, and probably the best game of the weekend. Sunday Night Football. Philly coming off a loss. Miami coming up against another amazing offensive performance against the Carolina Panthers, and of course they should. Start off a little slow, but Tyreek Hill still had an amazing game. Tua again, consistent as always. Mostert just a beast, just getting touchdowns left and right. It's so frustrating. You pick up Devin Ashane, you get one good game and then he gets hurt. Of course, that's how it always happens, but the Eagles, Jalen Hurts, a couple interceptions last week, lost in the game. Should have won that game going away against Jets. There's no reason for them to lose. It is in Philadelphia, so maybe that gives them an edge. But their terrible fan base. I mean, seriously. Of all the fan bases in the NFL, Philly's fan base is probably one of the worst. Most unlikable group of people you'll ever meet. But should be a very fun matchup, probably a very high scoring matchup. I would think, especially for Philly, they're going to need to keep up with Miami. It's probably going to go down to the wire as well. 35-31. Miami. And finally, we have San Francisco, Minnesota on Monday Night Football. Who knows if Christian McCaffrey will play? Deebo Samuel is injured. Trent Williams got injured as well. For the Vikings, yes, they won last week, but it wasn't a very great performance against the Bears. They don't look very good. Their offense is not the same without Justin Jefferson. It's not. KJ Osborne is no Justin Jefferson. Jordan Addison has the potential to be such a player, but he didn't look too great last week. He had a touchdown catch. He had some good moments as well, but nothing to write home about. Their rushing attack still is not great. Kirk Cousins' decision making at time is befuddling and confusing. It makes you just scratch your head like, why? That fumble that certainly didn't lead. I think it just led to a field goal at the beginning of the game was just head scratching again. San Francisco should still have more than enough. Brock Purdy hopefully will do better this week. He's not playing against good of a defense. Minnesota's defense is not great. Nothing to write home about. And San Francisco should still have plenty because their defensive line is still pretty intact. So they should be able to get after it against Minnesota. In this game, I like San Francisco to win 28-17. And those were my picks for the week. As always, I'm doing the Green Bay Packers game separate against the Denver Broncos, which who knows how that game's going to turn out, but look forward to that other video. But have a great day, and as always, God bless.